What if the very first sentence you say after opening your eyes is quietly deciding whether you'll recognize your next financial breakthrough or walk right past it without ever knowing it? Almost nobody notices this. Every morning, within moments of waking up, your mind begins filtering reality before you've consciously made a single decision. By the time you reach for your phone or step out of bed, that filter is already influencing what captures your attention and what disappears without a trace. You probably believe money grows through hard work, skill, or timing, and they all matter. But there's another factor hiding underneath them. Napoleon Hill repeatedly taught that every lasting achievement begins with a dominant thought held consistently in the mind. Not because thoughts magically create wealth, but because they shape what you expect, what you notice, and the actions you're willing to take when a possibility appears. Here's the part most people never realize. If your first inner conversation is filled with worry, pressure, or quiet resignation, your brain immediately starts collecting evidence that those feelings are justified. A conversation that could open a door feels unimportant. An idea gets dismissed before it has a chance to grow. A decision that might change your future is postponed for another day. The door wasn't locked. You simply stopped seeing it. Today, you're going to discover a morning statement that isn't designed to fool your mind. It is designed to direct it. By the end of this video, you'll understand why a few intentional words can change the way you perceive the entire day, and why this simple habit often becomes the invisible line separating people who constantly recognize new possibilities from those who believe nothing ever changes. If you've made it this far, it's because you're determined to have a life of success. So I invite you to subscribe to the channel, because every video will help you develop the mindset that attracts wealth, prosperity, and new opportunities every day. Because before you choose the words that deserve a place in your morning, you need to understand who has really been speaking inside your mind all this time. Most people never question the voice they hear first thing in the morning. They assume it's simply who they are. But if you paid attention to that voice for just 1 week, you might discover something unsettling. Most of what it says isn't new. It's yesterday speaking again. The same worries, the same expectations, the same quiet narrative rehearsed so many times that it feels like truth. And that's where financial growth often begins to slow. Not because you lack intelligence or potential, but because your mind keeps preparing you for the future it already expects. Think about how easily you can drive somewhere without remembering the journey. Repetition turns actions into patterns. Beliefs work the same way. Once an idea is repeated often enough, your mind stops evaluating it. It starts operating from it. If you've spent years telling yourself, "People like me never get ahead," or "real wealth is for someone else," those thoughts don't remain harmless opinions. They quietly become assumptions. And assumptions shape behavior long before you notice the results. They influence the conversations you avoid, the risks you never take, and the ideas you dismiss before they have a chance to grow. The encouraging part is that the process isn't permanent. The same mind that learned limitation can learn a different pattern. Not instantly, not by pretending everything is perfect, but through deliberate repetition linked to meaningful action. Napoleon Hill consistently emphasized having a definite purpose because he understood that the mind gradually organizes itself around what it repeatedly accepts as important. Your focus follows your dominant thoughts. Your choices follow your focus. And over time, your life begins reflecting those choices. Notice what changes first. Not your income, not your circumstances, your perception. Most people wait for external proof before changing the way they think. But lasting change usually begins in the opposite direction. You start noticing what was always there, simply because your attention has shifted. Picture two people walking down the same street. One sees businesses struggling, rising costs, and reasons to feel discouraged. The other notices a store looking for a new owner, a busy cafe revealing customer demand, or a problem that could become someone's next business. Neither person is imagining things. They're responding to different parts of the same reality. That's because your brain is constantly filtering information. It can't process everything, so it highlights what matches the patterns you've reinforced over time. This is why the first conversation you have with yourself each morning matters so much. It doesn't predict your future. It influences what you'll recognize when the future begins placing possibilities in front of you. And that's why the sentence you'll learn later isn't powerful because of the words alone. It's powerful because of the direction those words quietly give to your mind before the rest of the world has a chance to do it. There's a question almost nobody asks. When you wake up, who's speaking inside your head? You, or a version of you created years ago? At first, they sound identical. That's what makes them so difficult to separate. One voice belongs to the person you're capable of becoming. The other is built from old disappointments, family opinions, repeated fears, and conclusions formed during moments that no longer define your life. Yet your brain doesn't stop each morning to decide which one deserves to be trusted. It simply follows the pattern it knows best. Maybe you grew up hearing that money changes people, that financial success belongs to the lucky, or that people from your background can only go so far. Even if you no longer agree with those ideas, they may still influence your decisions in ways that are almost impossible to notice. Because beliefs rarely disappear the moment you reject them. They disappear when they are gradually replaced by stronger patterns repeated through thought, emotion, and action. This is exactly why Napoleon Hill gave so much importance to autosuggestion, not as a ritual, not as wishful thinking, but as the deliberate practice of directing your attention toward an aim so consistently that your behavior begins aligning with it. Without action, words fade. Without emotion, they become routine. Without purpose, they lose direction. Only when those three elements move together does repetition begin changing the way you respond to the world around you. Here's something most people never consider. The first few minutes after waking up are not important because they're magical. They're important because they're uncontested. Before emails, before notifications, before someone else's expectations. For a brief moment, your attention still belongs to you. And whatever claims that space first often influences the emotional rhythm of everything that follows. That's why reaching for your phone the instant you wake up carries a hidden cost. You begin your day reacting instead of choosing. Other people's urgency becomes your urgency. Other people's fears quietly become your focus. Without noticing, you've allowed the outside world to write the opening chapter of a day that was supposed to belong to you. Now imagine beginning differently. Not by pretending life is easy. Not by ignoring your responsibilities. But by deciding, before anything else, what deserves your attention. That single choice creates something surprisingly rare. Space between stimulus and response. And inside that space, better decisions become possible. You listen more carefully. You hesitate less when a worthwhile opportunity appears. You stop dismissing ideas simply because they feel unfamiliar. Your circumstances may look exactly the same, but the person moving through them no longer is. And that's precisely where most people make the mistake that prevents this practice from ever changing anything. Even when they repeat the right words every single morning. This is where most people give up without realizing they were closer than they thought. They find a sentence that inspires them. They repeat it for a few mornings. Nothing dramatic changes. So they quietly decide, maybe this just isn't for me. But look closely at what they're waiting for. They're expecting the outside world to respond before anything changes inside. A better job, a bigger paycheck, the perfect opportunity. When those things don't appear immediately, they abandon the habit before it has time to influence the only place where lasting change actually begins. Napoleon Hill never suggested that repeating words by themselves creates wealth. His message was far more practical. A definite purpose, reinforced by consistent thought and followed by persistent action, gradually transforms the decisions that shape a person's future. The repetition isn't the source of change. It's the daily reminder of the direction you've chosen. Think about someone learning to play the piano. They don't practice scales because scales are beautiful to listen to. They practice because every repetition quietly changes the musician. Your morning statement serves the same purpose. Its job isn't to produce money. Its job is to shape the person who will eventually recognize, create, and act on opportunities that were once overlooked. At first, the changes are almost invisible. You ask one more question. You hesitate a little less. You finally make the phone call you've been postponing. You notice a problem that others ignore, and suddenly see that solving it could become real value for someone else. Each decision feels ordinary. Together, they begin moving your life in a different direction. From the outside, people may call it luck. From the inside, it feels like you've stopped resisting your own potential. That's why your first words each morning should never become empty ritual. They should remind you, before the noise of the world arrives, what kind of person you're choosing to become that day. Before we reveal that statement, I want to ask you something. If you're ready to stop waking up with the same limitations you've carried for years, write, "I attract wealth" in the comments. Not because typing those words has power by itself, but because every meaningful transformation begins with a conscious decision. And sometimes, one simple act of commitment is enough to interrupt an old pattern that has been running your life for years. Now there's one final piece you need to understand. Because the first words of that morning statement are almost never the words people expect. And that's exactly why they matter so much. Most people think a powerful morning statement should begin with money. That's usually the first mistake. They search for words that sound impressive. I'm already wealthy. Money comes to me effortlessly. For a moment, those sentences may feel encouraging. But if they clash with everything you've experienced, something unexpected happens. Instead of guiding your attention, they create resistance. Part of you immediately begins arguing with what you're saying. And once that argument begins, the purpose of the exercise is lost. This is why the most effective morning statements don't begin by describing what you possess. They begin by reminding you who you're choosing to become. There's a meaningful difference between saying, "I already have everything I want," and saying, "Today, I will recognize opportunities to create value, make wise decisions, and move one step closer to financial freedom." Read those words slowly. Notice what they ask of you. Nothing impossible, nothing imaginary, only a decision about how you'll meet the day. That difference changes everything. Napoleon Hill consistently connected lasting wealth with desire, definite purpose, sound decisions, and persistent action. Those qualities don't depend on your current income. They begin shaping your future long before your bank account reflects them. This is why your first words shouldn't describe a fantasy. They should establish a direction. The first part is simple. Today, I will recognize opportunities. Because opportunities rarely announce themselves. They often arrive disguised as ordinary moments. A conversation you almost skipped. An idea that seemed too small. A problem everyone complains about, but no one has solved. A skill you've underestimated for years. The people who consistently move forward financially aren't necessarily seeing a different world. They're paying attention to different details. Then comes the second part. Create value. The question quietly shifts from, how can I make more money? To, how can I become more useful today? And that single change has influenced countless successful entrepreneurs, professionals, and creators. Value has a way of opening doors that desperation never can. Finally, make wise decisions and move one step closer to financial freedom. Not 10 steps. Not overnight. 1. Because your future is rarely changed by one extraordinary decision. More often, it's shaped by hundreds of ordinary decisions made with extraordinary consistency. Over time, something subtle begins happening. Those words stop feeling like something you repeat. They begin sounding like someone you've started becoming. And that's the moment this practice truly begins. Not when you memorize the sentence, but when the sentence quietly starts influencing the choices you make without you even noticing. The only question now is this. What keeps that transformation alive after the excitement of the first few mornings disappears? Here's what surprises most people. The greatest threat to your future isn't failure. It's forgetting. Not forgetting your goals. Forgetting the person you decided to become. The first few mornings usually feel easy. You're focused, curious, committed. Then real life returns. A stressful meeting, an unexpected expense, a poor night's sleep. Without noticing, yesterday's version of you quietly sits back in the driver's seat. Not because it is stronger, because it is more familiar. Many people call this a lack of discipline, but that's rarely what's happening. The real struggle is that they rely on emotion to sustain a decision that should be rooted in identity. Emotions change constantly. Identity changes slowly. And what changes slowly tends to last. Napoleon Hill consistently emphasized persistence, not as moments of intense motivation, but as the quiet decision to continue moving toward a definite purpose long after the initial excitement has faded. Persistence is rarely dramatic. Most days, it looks almost invisible. It looks like keeping a promise that no one else even knows you made. Think about someone learning a new language. Progress doesn't come from one extraordinary day of study. It comes from returning to the lesson again and again until what once felt unnatural becomes automatic. Your morning practice follows the same principle. Its value isn't found in a perfect streak. Its value is found in returning. Again and again. Missing one morning changes very little. Convincing yourself that one missed morning means you failed. That's what allows the old pattern to take control again. Pay attention to the excuses that usually appear. I'll start fresh next week. Today's too busy. I'll do it when things calm down. But life rarely becomes less demanding. If you wait for perfect conditions, you'll spend years waiting. That's why this practice should be simple enough to survive your busiest mornings. Because transformation isn't built on extraordinary days. It's built on ordinary days repeated with intention. Think of your morning words as a compass. A compass doesn't move the traveler. It simply prevents them from wandering without realizing it. That's exactly what these few quiet moments do. Before the world begins asking for your attention, they remind you where to place it. Eventually, something subtle begins to change. You stop forcing yourself to think differently. You naturally begin asking better questions. Where can I create value? What am I failing to notice? What's the wisest decision available to me right now? Those questions slowly become your default response. Not because your old inner voice disappeared, but because you've stopped allowing it to make your decisions. And that's when you discover something that completely changes the way you think about wealth. The people who build lasting financial success are rarely chasing money first. They're chasing something much deeper, and money often follows. Here's one of the biggest contradictions in human behavior. The harder someone tries to force success, the more difficult it often becomes to recognize the path that actually leads to it. Pressure has a strange effect. It narrows perception. Every decision starts carrying too much weight. Every setback feels like a verdict. Every delay begins looking like evidence that nothing is changing. Eventually, urgency replaces clarity. Napoleon Hill repeatedly connected achievement with a definite purpose that extended beyond financial gain alone. Prosperity has enormous value, but when it becomes the only thing occupying your thoughts, your attention gradually shifts from contribution to survival. And survival rarely inspires your best decisions. Think about the people you naturally enjoy talking to. Most aren't trying to impress you. They aren't trying to convince you of anything. They're present. They're curious. They're genuinely interested. That changes the entire conversation. Now imagine approaching your work, your business, or even a simple conversation with the same mindset. Instead of asking, "How can I get something from this?" you begin asking, "How can I leave this situation better than I found it?" It's a small change in language, but a profound change in perspective. Suddenly, you listen more carefully. You notice problems other people overlook. You become less concerned with appearing successful and more focused on becoming genuinely useful. And usefulness has a quiet way of opening doors. People remember it. They recommend it. They trust it. This is one of the most practical ideas woven throughout Napoleon Hill's philosophy. Influence isn't built by demanding attention. It's earned by consistently creating value where others create noise. Now think back to the morning statement you've been building throughout this journey. Every part of it has been preparing you for this shift, not to chase results, but to become the kind of person whose daily choices naturally produce better results over time. From the outside, that transformation is almost invisible. Someone returns your call. A conversation leads to an introduction. An overlooked skill suddenly becomes valuable. People often describe moments like these as luck. But luck has a habit of visiting those who have quietly prepared themselves to recognize what everyone else walks past. That's why your mornings matter so much. They don't control the world around you. They influence the person who steps into it. And over time, that person begins noticing possibilities that were present all along. The surprising part is this. Most people miss the evidence that this transformation is already happening. Not because the evidence isn't there, because they're looking for it in the wrong place. This is where many people lose heart. Not because nothing is happening, because they fail to recognize the quiet signs that something already has. Most people look for one form of evidence: a larger income, a better position, a sudden breakthrough. Those moments matter, but they rarely appear first. Real transformation usually begins long before it becomes visible. Picture an oak tree. For months, perhaps years, its greatest growth happens underground. No applause, no visible progress. Yet every unseen root is preparing the strength the tree will eventually need. Personal growth follows a remarkably similar pattern. Before your finances begin reflecting change, your standards begin rising. Before your circumstances shift, your choices become more deliberate. Before new doors open, you start noticing possibilities that used to blend into the background. Those changes are easy to overlook precisely because they seem ordinary. You become calmer under pressure. You recover from disappointment a little faster. You stop treating every obstacle as a final answer. Instead, a different question quietly appears. What can this situation reveal that I haven't seen yet? That single question changes more than most people realize. Napoleon Hill often wrote that every adversity carries the seed of an equivalent benefit. He wasn't suggesting that hardship is pleasant or desirable. He was pointing to something far more practical. The meaning of an obstacle is rarely obvious in the moment. Its value is often discovered only after you've continued moving. That's why people who wait for certainty before taking action often remain exactly where they are. Movement frequently creates clarity. Stillness rarely does. This is also why your morning practice becomes even more valuable on difficult days. Those are the mornings when old thought patterns return with the greatest confidence. When doubt sounds reasonable. When fear disguises itself as caution. When yesterday quietly tries to convince you that tomorrow has already been decided. And yet, that's precisely when one intentional thought can change the emotional direction of the hours ahead. Not because your circumstances suddenly improve, because the person facing those circumstances has changed. That shift doesn't announce itself. It accumulates. One morning, one decision, one response at a time, until one day you notice something almost impossible to explain. The life around you may not have changed as quickly as you hoped, but the person living it no longer sees the world through the same eyes. And once that happens, a far more important question begins to emerge. If opportunities have been passing by all along, what has finally allowed you to recognize them now? That's the question that quietly changes everything. Because the moment you ask it honestly, something shifts. You stop believing that possibility appears only for a fortunate few. You begin realizing that much of what changes in life first changes in perception. Think about the last time someone taught you the name of a plant, a car model, or even a song you had never noticed before. Within days, it seemed to be everywhere. The world hadn't changed. Your awareness had. Financial possibilities often emerge the same way. A conversation suddenly feels important. An overlooked skill begins revealing unexpected value. A problem you've seen for years quietly starts looking like an opportunity, waiting for someone willing to solve it. Nothing magical happened. You simply became capable of seeing what your previous patterns ignored. That's one of the greatest purposes of beginning your day intentionally. Not to control reality, to prepare yourself for it. Because the greatest obstacle for most people isn't a lack of opportunity. It's fragmented attention. Modern life trains you to react. A notification, a headline, another opinion, another distraction. Hour after hour, your focus is borrowed by things that have very little to do with the future you're trying to build. Without noticing, you spend the day responding instead of directing. That's why those first quiet moments after waking up are so valuable. They're among the few moments that still belong entirely to you. Protect them, not because they're mystical, because they're foundational. Before the world begins competing for your attention, you have a chance to decide what deserves it. Now imagine starting each morning with one simple reminder. Today, I will recognize opportunities to create value, make wise decisions, and move one step closer to financial freedom. Then carry those words into an ordinary day. A conversation over coffee, a meeting you almost canceled, a book you've postponed reading, a stranger who asks an unexpected question. None of those moments announces itself as life-changing. In fact, the most important turning points rarely do. Only later do you realize that everything began with something so ordinary you almost overlooked it. That's why persistence matters so much. It keeps you present long enough to recognize what impatience would have ignored. Eventually, you stop waiting for life to deliver extraordinary moments. You begin treating ordinary moments as places where extraordinary futures quietly begin. And once that perspective becomes part of who you are, the final piece of this journey reveals itself. Because there is one truth about wealth, opportunity, and the human mind that most people never discover, even after years of searching. The final principle before everything comes together is surprisingly simple. So simple that most people spend years searching for something more complicated. You don't create a prosperous life by thinking about prosperity every hour of the day. You create it by becoming the kind of person whose ordinary choices naturally lead in that direction. Those are not the same thing. One is driven by obsession, the other by alignment. Obsession keeps asking, when will my life finally change? Alignment quietly asks, what's the wisest choice available to me today? Only one of those questions gives you something you can actually control. Napoleon Hill repeatedly emphasized that a definite purpose gives direction to thought, and directed thought gives direction to action. That's why genuine transformation rarely begins with results. It begins with direction. Many people wait until they feel confident before acting. But confidence is rarely the starting point. More often, it's the reward for repeatedly keeping promises you've made to yourself. Think about someone you deeply trust. That trust probably wasn't created by one extraordinary moment. It was built through countless ordinary moments when their actions consistently matched their words. The relationship you have with yourself is no different. Every morning you honor the commitment you've made. Even in a small way, you strengthen something far more valuable than temporary motivation. You strengthen self-trust. And once self-trust begins growing, your decisions quietly change. You speak with greater certainty. You recover from rejection more quickly. You stop abandoning meaningful goals every time progress becomes invisible. From the outside, people often describe this as confidence. But confidence is usually what consistency looks like after enough time has passed. That's why those few quiet moments each morning matter so much. They're not there to impress anyone. They're there to remind you of the standard you've chosen for your own life before the world begins testing it. Eventually, something remarkable happens. The sentence you once had to repeat consciously begins appearing in your behavior without any effort. You naturally look for ways to contribute. You naturally pause before reacting. You naturally recognize possibilities that your former self would have dismissed. Not because life suddenly became easier, Because you became different. And when a person quietly changes day after day, year after year, the results almost become impossible to avoid. Which brings us to the final piece of this entire journey. The realization that changes the meaning of every word you've heard since the beginning of this video. Now, return to the question we started with. Could the first words you speak each morning influence the opportunities you recognize throughout the day? At the beginning, that question may have sounded like a simple habit. But now you understand something deeper. The purpose was never to convince yourself that wealth would suddenly appear. It was to decide what kind of person would step into the day before circumstances had the chance to decide for you. That difference changes everything. Because two people can experience the same reality and walk away with completely different futures. Imagine two people waking up on the same Monday morning. Same city, similar responsibilities, similar challenges. One immediately returns to familiar thoughts. The bills, the pressure, the things that might go wrong. Before the day even begins, the mind is already searching for confirmation that life is difficult. The other person pauses. For a moment, they choose a different direction. They remind themselves, today, I will recognize opportunities to create value, make wise decisions, and move one step closer to financial freedom. Then they enter the same world, the same streets, the same economy, the same uncertainties. But something has changed. Not outside, inside. They listen differently. They respond differently. They notice details that previously passed unnoticed. A conversation becomes an idea. A problem becomes a possibility. A setback becomes information instead of a final answer. None of these moments appears extraordinary while it's happening. And that's the part most people miss. A transformed life is rarely built through one dramatic event. It's built through ordinary choices repeated until they become part of who you are. Because your character is not revealed only in moments of success. It's revealed when nobody is watching. When the plan fails. When progress feels slow. When the excitement disappears and the commitment remains. That is where real change is created. Not in the moments when everything feels easy, but in the moments when you choose your direction anyway. Perhaps this is why so many people spend years searching for the perfect opportunity while ignoring the daily decisions that prepare them to recognize one. They keep looking for something outside themselves. A better moment, a better circumstance, a better chance. But sometimes the first opportunity is much closer than they imagined. It begins in the quiet moments before the world starts demanding their attention. Tomorrow morning, your circumstances may look exactly the same. The same room, the same responsibilities, the same challenges. But if you begin with intention instead of automatic thinking, you may discover that life has been presenting possibilities all along. You simply weren't seeing them yet. And that brings us to the final realization. Because the most important transformation was never about attracting opportunities. It was about becoming someone who is finally ready to receive them. Now everything returns to one simple moment. The moment you open your eyes. Before the notifications. Before the expectations. Before the world begins telling you what deserves your attention. There is a brief space that still belongs completely to you. And inside that space, you make a choice. Not a choice that changes everything in one day. A choice that slowly changes the person who faces every day after that. Because every morning, you are reinforcing a direction. You are either strengthening the patterns that keep you comfortable, or developing the awareness required to move beyond them. The statement you've discovered throughout this journey is not a promise of instant results. It does not replace discipline. It does not remove challenges. It does not guarantee that every step will be easy. And that is exactly why it has meaning. Because real growth does not come from escaping reality. It comes from becoming someone who can respond to reality with greater clarity. When you wake up and say, "Today, I will recognize opportunities to create value, make wise decisions, and move one step closer to financial freedom," you are not asking the world to give you something without effort. You are choosing the way you will meet the world. You are choosing to pay attention, to learn, to improve, to act with purpose. And with time, that decision begins changing something deeper than your circumstances. It changes your relationship with yourself. You start trusting your ability to adapt. You start honoring the commitments you make privately. You start seeing challenges not only as obstacles, but as moments that reveal your next level of growth. This is the foundation behind many of Napoleon Hill's principles. Success begins internally, not because thoughts alone create results, but because the thoughts you consistently hold influence the actions you repeatedly take. And repeated actions shape your future. The person who develops this mindset moves differently. They don't chase every opportunity out of desperation. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They prepare. Because an opportunity you cannot recognize is almost the same as an opportunity that never existed. But when preparation meets awareness, a conversation can become a connection. A setback can become a lesson. A simple idea can become a new direction. Most people look back at their biggest breakthroughs and believe they happened suddenly. But the truth is quieter. The breakthrough was being built long before anyone could see it. In the choices made when nobody was watching. In the mornings when they chose intention over distraction. In the moments when they decided to become someone different. So tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phone, before the noise begins, remember this. Your future will not be determined only by the opportunities that appear. It will be determined by the person you become when they do. Protect your thoughts. Choose your direction. Keep becoming someone who can see what others overlook. Because sometimes the greatest opportunity waiting for you is not something you need to find. It is something you need to become ready to recognize. If this message helped you see your mornings differently, follow the channel and share this video with 5 people who need this reminder. One simple idea, shared at the right moment, can become the beginning of a new way of thinking. Thank you for being here. And remember, the life you want to create often begins with the thoughts you choose before the world has a chance to influence them.